In March 1722, somewhere in the dark waters between Hispaniola and Jamaica, a pirate named Thomas Sutton woke up to the sound of a lock clicking shut. He reached for the knife he kept under his hammock. It was gone. He reached for the pistol hanging from the beam above his head. Gone. Every weapon within arm's reach had been removed while he slept. And when he tried to push open the door to the lower deck, he found it had been barred from the outside. Sutton wasn't a prisoner of the Royal Navy. He wasn't captured by Spanish soldiers. He was locked inside his own pirate ship by his own crew, because sometime between sunset and midnight, the men he had sailed with for 3 years decided he couldn't be trusted anymore. We think trust on a pirate ship was simple. You signed the articles, you followed the code, and everyone held together because the alternative was hanging. But that's the Hollywood version. The truth is that trust on a pirate ship was the most fragile, most volatile, most carefully engineered thing aboard. More delicate than the gunpowder in the magazine, more dangerous than the ocean beneath the hull. And when it broke, it didn't break slowly. It shattered in a single night. Every pirate captain knew this. The code wasn't just a set of rules for dividing treasure and settling disputes. Half of those articles existed for one reason only, to prevent the exact moment when a crew of armed, dangerous men looked at each other and thought the same poisonous thought at the same time. He's going to betray me before I betray him. That thought destroyed more pirate ships than every cannonball ever fired. And the story of what happened aboard the pirate sloop Eagle in March 1722 is the most terrifying example of how fast a brotherhood of outlaws could become a floating nightmare when trust vanished between sundown and sunrise. The pirate sloop Eagle sailed out of Nassau, Bahamas in January 1722 under the command of Captain Charles Harris. Harris was 31 years old, a former merchant sailor who had deserted a trading vessel off Barbados after his captain refused to pay 6 months of owed wages. He joined a pirate crew, proved himself competent in 3 engagements, and was elected captain by a crew of 26 men who trusted him for one specific reason. He had never lied to them about anything. Trust was currency on a pirate ship. Not gold, not rum, not the promise of future prizes. Trust, because every man aboard slept within arm's reach of men carrying loaded weapons. Every man ate food prepared by someone who could poison it. Every man turned his back 100 times a day to climb rigging, haul rope, or lean over the railing. If you couldn't trust the man behind you, you couldn't function. And if the crew couldn't function, the ship was dead. The pirate code addressed this directly. Article after article existed specifically to eliminate the conditions that bred suspicion. No gambling because debts created secret resentments. Equal shares of every prize because hidden wealth meant someone was cheating. No private conversations with prisoners because whispered deals with captives meant potential betrayal. Every article was a wall built between trust and the thing that destroyed it. Captain Harris ran a disciplined pirate ship. His crew had captured 4 small merchant vessels in 2 months, dividing each prize fairly according to the articles. Morale was high. The Eagle was in good condition. Provisions were adequate. By every measurable standard, this was a pirate crew that worked. But Harris had a problem he didn't know about. 3 weeks before that night in March, during the capture of a Spanish merchant brig off the coast of Santo Domingo, something happened in the chaos of the boarding action that planted a seed of suspicion in the minds of 4 crew members. A seed that grew in whispers for 21 days before it exploded on a quiet night when the wind was calm and men had nothing to do but think. Here's where it gets interesting. The 4 pirate crew members who had watched Sutton enter that stern cabin alone believed he had found something and kept it for himself. A hidden compartment. A personal stash belonging to the Spanish captain. Gold, jewels, documents, they didn't know exactly what, but they were convinced Sutton had broken the most sacred rule in the pirate code. He had stolen from the common stock. In any other society, suspicion alone wouldn't be enough to act on. You'd need evidence. You'd need a formal accusation. You'd need a trial. But think about where these men were. They were floating on a wooden box in the middle of the Caribbean Sea with no law, no court, and no authority beyond what they created for themselves. And the pirate code was brutally clear on theft. If a man was caught stealing from the crew, the punishment was death or marooning. No exceptions. No appeals. A vote, a verdict, and it was done before sunrise. The 4 men didn't bring their suspicion to Captain Harris. They didn't call for a formal trial. Instead, they did something far more destructive. They whispered. For 3 weeks, they moved through the pirate crew one conversation at a time, sharing their theory in private. Did you see Sutton near the stern cabin? Why was he alone? What did he take? Has anyone checked his belongings? Each whisper spread the suspicion further. Each private conversation recruited another doubter. And the most poisonous part was that Sutton had no idea it was happening. By the night of March 14th, the crew was split. 12 men believed Sutton was a thief. 8 men weren't sure. 6 men, including Captain Harris, had heard nothing at all. The pirate code had procedures for exactly this situation: formal accusation, defense, crew vote. But the whispering had bypassed the entire system. Trust hadn't been broken by evidence. It had been broken by imagination. And once 12 armed men on a 26-man pirate ship decided they couldn't trust one of their own, the code stopped matching. Fear replaced procedure. And fear, unlike the code, had no rules. That's the thing nobody understands about pirate ships. The code could govern theft, combat, and treasure division. But it couldn't govern what happened inside a man's mind at 2 in the morning when he couldn't sleep and the man in the next hammock might be hiding stolen gold beneath his mattress. Captain Harris did something that night that most pirate captains wouldn't have risked. He demanded the code be followed. He stood in front of 12 armed, frightened men and told them that Sutton would receive a trial in the morning. Proper trial. Accusation, defense, crew vote. The way the articles demanded. The 12 men argued. They had already convicted Sutton in their minds. 3 weeks of whispered certainty had hardened into absolute truth. But Harris held firm. He reminded them of Article 6 of their own code. No man shall be punished without a vote of the full crew, and no vote shall be held without the accused present to speak. It was the longest night on the Eagle. Harris posted 2 men he trusted at the locked door with instructions that no one was to enter or harm Sutton before dawn. The 12 suspicious crew members sat on deck, awake, armed, watching. The 8 undecided men retreated to corners and tried to sleep but couldn't. And below the locked door, Sutton sat in the dark, hearing everything and nothing, waiting to learn whether he would see the sunrise. At first light, Harris unlocked the door himself. Sutton came up on deck unarmed, blinking in the gray morning light, facing 25 men who were staring at him the way you stare at a stranger. The gaunt, scarred pirate, whose name was recorded in later trial documents as William Crane, made the formal accusation. Sutton entered the stern cabin of the Spanish merchant brig alone during the boarding action. He was seen near the captain's iron chest. He concealed whatever he found and kept it from the common stock. The penalty under the articles was death. Sutton's defense was simple and devastating. He had entered the stern cabin looking for navigational charts. Captain Harris had ordered him to find any maps showing Spanish shipping routes, and Sutton had gone where maps would logically be kept, the captain's cabin. He found the iron chest locked and left it untouched. He took 2 rolled charts from a desk drawer and delivered them to Harris that same afternoon. Harris confirmed this immediately. He had sent Sutton to find charts. He had received the charts. He had forgotten to mention the order to the rest of the crew in the chaos of the boarding. 21 days of suspicion. 21 days of whispered conspiracy. 21 days of trust dissolving between men who had bled together. All of it built on a moment that one man saw and misunderstood because he didn't have one piece of information. A verbal order from the captain that took 5 seconds to explain. The crew voted. Sutton was innocent. Unanimous. But the damage was already done. The Eagle never recovered. Trial documents from the crew's eventual capture in June 1722 recorded what happened in the weeks after Sutton's acquittal. Sutton stopped sleeping below deck. He moved his hammock to an exposed corner of the main deck, where he could see every man who approached him. He fashioned a second knife from a galley utensil and kept it hidden in a place only he knew. He spoke to no one unless spoken to. He did his work and he did it well, but the man who had laughed and shared rum with his crewmates for 3 years was gone. In his place was someone who counted exits and slept with one eye open. He wasn't the only one who changed. Crane and the 11 others who had accused him carried a different kind of damage. The knowledge that they had almost killed an innocent man based on a whisper. Some overcompensated, becoming excessively friendly towards Sutton in ways that felt wrong. Others avoided him entirely, creating physical gaps on the pirate deck that everyone could see but nobody mentioned. Captain Harris withdrew into his cabin for days at a time, blaming himself for the forgotten order that started everything. The pirate code had done its job. It had saved Sutton's life. The formal trial, the right to speak in his own defense, the crew vote, every mechanism worked exactly as designed. But the code could only govern actions, couldn't govern thoughts, couldn't unwhisper 3 weeks of suspicion. It couldn't rebuild the invisible architecture of trust that allowed 26 armed men to sleep beside each other without fear. When the Royal Navy sloop Greyhound caught the Eagle 3 months later, the pirate crew surrendered almost without resistance. 26 men with enough weapons to fight. 26 men who had once operated as a single lethal machine. They barely fired a shot. The prosecutors at their trial in Rhode Island called them cowards. But cowardice had nothing to do with it. You can't fight as a crew when you've stopped being one. And that's the truth that hides beneath every pirate code ever written. The articles could prevent theft. They could regulate combat. They could divide treasure fairly and punish desertion justly. But they couldn't protect the one thing that actually held a pirate ship together, the belief, fragile and irrational and absolutely essential, that the man standing next to you would not betray you when the moment came. Every society runs on that belief. Every family, every business, every nation. We build laws and contracts and constitutions to protect it, and we tell ourselves that the system is what holds us together. But it isn't. The system is just the scaffolding. What holds us together is something far more fragile, the decision made fresh every single morning to trust the people around you even though you have no guarantee they deserve it. The pirates knew this better than anyone. They knew it because they lived in a world where trust had no safety net, where the man beside you carried a loaded pistol and the nearest court of law was 1,000 miles away. And they knew that when trust died, it didn't die with a bang. It died with a whisper, a glance, a locked door in the middle of the night. And once it was dead, no code, no article, no vote could bring it back. If you want to hear more stories about the hidden forces that held pirate crews together and tore them apart, subscribe so you don't miss the next one.